All the Mets had to do to get their season back on track is promote Mark Vientos. The rookie comes through with a game-time homer late. The Mets fall again. Guess what? You have another rookie to pick up the pieces. Francisco Alvarez ties it with the homer. And then in extras, the big man finally comes through. Pete Alonso walks it off. The win of the year for the Mets. Could this have turned their season around? We're going to discuss that on today's edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor, and where I wrote an article today talking about Mark Vientos and how he could add power to the lineup. It's the same thing I discussed on yesterday's podcast. Then guess what happens? About 10 minutes, I think, before I was going to publish the article, Vientos gets called up. Podcast was already up, and I was like, do I got to re-record? Do I got to come back and do something else because Vientos set up? Do I have to do an emergency podcast? I listened back to the show, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I was talking like Vientos was already on the team because it made that much sense to finally promote him. And guess what? The Mets make the right move. And in the final segment, we'll discuss the roster machinations and all of that stuff and how he got on the roster, who got optioned. I don't care about that. We just watched the game of the year. And Mark Vientos was the spark plug. He was the catalyst because Kodai Senga was brilliant. And once again, this Mets lineup did nothing. They were quiet. Nothing was happening. You get to this point where you're in the seventh inning, down 2-0. After Senga only gave up one, the bullpen gives up one. The first inning, he's out. And you think this game might be over. Mark Canha gets hit by a pitch. Always a good omen. And Mark Vientos comes up. What did I talk about in yesterday's show? Why Mark Vientos was ready to be back in the big leagues. Why he's ready to thrive in the big leagues and thrive against right-handed pitching. Well, he sees breaking balls much better now. Facing a guy with a weird arm angle, the Rays are always filled with those type of pitchers. Leave out of the pen. Gets a hanging slider. Identifies it, doesn't miss it, hits it dead central. That ball clears the wall. Mark Vientos fired up as he runs the bases. The entire team fired up. And it felt like a spark was lit back into the Mets season. Hey, look, one game's not going to cure all, but it certainly cured all for a fan base that desperately needed some feel-good. And that home run brought some feel-good. Then the 2023 Mets come back and they bum you out, okay? 8th inning, Adam Ottavino gives up 2. 9th inning, Nogasek labors and gives up 1. Once again, the Mets are in a hole. They're down 3. You think, all right, that's it. That's it. This team had a good fight. I was already trying to plan out what I was going to talk about. Maybe I was going to discuss, Buck Showalter's managerial decisions. Would he play Vientos enough? And hey, Vientos provided a little spark, and Senga was great. So, some good things to build on, but another loss for your New York Mets. And then guess what? They woke up in a big way because maybe it was Mark Vientos that had finally startled them up a couple innings prior. Daniel Vogelbach draws a walk. Starlin Marte hit by a pitch. Seems like he's okay. It's a little bit scary. You have Brett Beatty strikes out. Mark Vientos flies out. All down to Francisco Alvarez, the 9th hitter. And what does Alvarez do? He hits a moonshot, 426 feet, 104.6 miles per hour off of the bat and ties the ball game for the New York Mets. It was the second pitch he saw. It was a hanger right down the middle. It was a sweeper that didn't sweep, but Alvarez was ready for it, and he put a great swing on it, and he sent the game to extras. And then at that point, when you get those 2 home runs, you think, man, are the Mets going to lose this game? They can't lose this game. The momentum's on their side. David Robertson, he gives up 2, okay? And the second run comes across. You had the first guy, the extra runner, steals third base, so he's sitting there. A ground ball makes it through an infield that was pulled in. Nothing you could do. He gives up another hit. The Mets throw it home. Francisco Alvarez heads up play, cuts it off, knowing that they're probably not going to get the guy at the plate, and gets the runner that was rounding first to get you out of that inning. And then it's like, all right, you just need 2 to tie. Well, the Mets did more than tie. You had your extra runner that was on. Jeff McNeil blooped a single, got on base. Lindor strikes out, and Pete Alonso comes up to the plate. And after seeing the kids come through, you know when Pete Alonso gets a fastball out over the heart of the plate, what he's going to do with it. He takes that ball 112.3 miles per hour off the bat, 416 feet, and hits a walk-off home run that just reinvigorated the Mets season. Unbelievable to see the fight that the Mets finally show and to get that type of feel-good after so many just series after series, week after week of struggle. That game tonight felt like a team finally finding an identity, because that's what the Mets have lacked all year, an identity. And Kodai Senga, he deserves a lot of credit, and I'll discuss him in the next segment because he was sensational. So good against a great lineup. But the identity that was formed tonight is an identity I hope the manager can get behind. Because Buck Showalter didn't even look happy when Mark Vientos tied the game. Obviously he was. But here's a manager that might be a little apprehensive to hand the keys of his ball club to some young kids who don't know any better, who got all the swagger and bluster in the world, that are just here to make a name for themselves and to hit tanks and to be MLB stars right away. But you need that youthful exuberance, and we saw it tonight. We saw with that youthful exuberance, that, short memory, that I don't care, I'm playing and I'm going to put my best swing out there, and I'm going to live out my dream on the biggest stage, and not thinking about the repercussions of the last couple of weeks. And when Mark Vientos steps into the box, he might have a chip on his shoulder, but it's not because the Mets haven't been scoring runs. He has a chip on his shoulder because he thinks he should have been on this team a month ago. Should have started the season on this team. Francisco Alvarez goes up, and he's just happy to be there. And these guys hit the home runs that kept you in that game long enough for your best player, Pete Alonso, to put you over the top and to win a thrilling baseball game. And now, Mets might mess around and win a series against this Rays team. And if they do that, that's going to send a message that might reverberate a little bit around the National League. That, you know what? This Mets team that some of us were pronouncing dead, maybe they got a little life in them. And maybe I'm taking too much from one game. But damn it, let me be happy tonight. What a baseball game. And Kodai Senga, again, deserves a lot of the credit. We're going to discuss him in just a minute. Before we do, I want to tell you about the most comfortable shorts you could possibly buy, Birddogs. Okay, these are shorts where you don't have to worry about look, because they look great. Okay, you could wear them to the golf course, wear them out to dinner, wherever you want to wear them. They look great, but they feel great. Okay, I'm a guy, I like my basketball shorts, man. Always have, always will. And I'd be lying if I said I'll stop wearing them. But the good thing now is, if I want to look a little more respectable, going out with the wife, I want to, make her not look at me and say, oh, wow, looks like, he just got out of a, Super Mario Brothers movie. I actually did see that. I did see that. And I was wearing basketball shorts when I saw it. Still, that was before I had my Birddogs. Now I can wear my Birddogs, and she looks at me a little more like, oh, yeah, that's the man. That's the man I married. That's what you want. You want shorts that everyone will love, and you're going to love wearing them. If you want to try Birddogs today, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. When you enter the promo code LockedOnMLB, they're going to throw in a free custom tumbler that is a Yeti-style tumbler with every order. Again, that is birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB, and use that promo code LockedOnMLB. Navigating and pitching against this Tampa Bay Rays lineup is a difficult task, but Kodai Senga was up to it. He was incredible in this start. Maybe it's recency bias. I'd call it the start of the season. I know Justin Verlander had a good one. Senga had a great one against the Rockies. Joey Lucchesi against the Giants, but especially considering the circumstances of the game with the way the Mets have been playing, the way that they rallied back and got the victory, and the fact that he was at the heart of it, carving through that Rays lineup that immediately as soon as he goes out, Mets give up runs in each of those innings. Okay? They gave up runs the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Earned runs also, because even though the one inherited runner comes along, Robertson gave up 2. So, earned runs in all of those innings. And all Senga gave up was a run in the 4th. A couple doubles that he allowed. But, I mean, go inning by inning, okay? You have first inning, strikes out 1, walks 1, line out, strikeout. Gets through the inning. Second inning, okay, gives up a base hit to lead things off, then strikes out the next 3 batters to get out of that one. And every single time a runner was on a base, it felt like they were stealing the next one, but it didn't phase Kodai Senga. Third inning, 1, 2, 3. Fourth inning, that was when he ran into his trouble giving up those doubles, but still, after giving up the 2 doubles, he had struck out the first batter, gave up the 2 doubles, and then strikes out the next 2 to get out of the jam. Wild pitch in that one, put a runner on third base. He pitched with that runner there and was able to get out of it. 5th inning, fly out, ground out, fly out. It was good for his pitch count. 6th inning, walks the leadoff batter. Wander Franco steals second. Strikes out Randy Arozarena. Brandon Lau walks. Pop up. Okay, so you get that out. 2 outs. Got runners at the corners. And a big strikeout. And we see an animated Kodai Senga as he leaves the mound. Goes into the dugout, fired up as you've ever seen him, and just the type of start that gives you some confidence in Kodai Senga. And that's what the Mets need. They need guys to step up in that rotation. And so as much as the overriding narrative skews towards the rookies and the home runs, Alonso with the walk-off, seeing the team score 8 and coming back in that triumphant fashion, they wouldn't even be in that game at all if it wasn't for Kodai Senga. And maybe the best thing to take from it moving forward is Kodai Senga being able to go up against a team like the Rays and pitch like that. Because we're in a situation right now watching this Mets team where you're just not getting any good starting pitching. But the one thing I'll say is what Senga showed us tonight is the reason they signed him over Chris Bassett. Now, Chris Bassett has been amazing for the Toronto Blue Jays this year, and he just had a start recently against the Braves where he was lights out. So it's not to say that Chris Bassett can't pitch against good lineups. But in the playoffs last year, it certainly didn't look that way. And what Chris Bassett doesn't have in him is 12 strikeouts against the Rays. I'd be shocked if we see that stat line this year, because he just doesn't have the arsenal that Kodai Senga does to get that level of strikeouts. Now, still walk 3. Walks will be an issue. But what a performance by Senga. And if he can keep that rolling and you start to get the version of Justin Verlander and Mark Vientos always on the mind, kids. If you get the version of Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer that you expect, and Kodai Senga pitches like that, and then you get the lineup rolling with the Mark Vientoses and everybody else coming through and pulling their weight, there's no reason the Mets can't turn this thing around. Season's still very, very early. Haven't even played their 45th game. That's going to come tomorrow. If the Mets win that and they beat the Rays in the series, maybe momentum can shift back into their favor and they can carry it and maybe turn this thing around. Not to say everything is fixed in a night. Again, there's been a lot of issues and there's going to continue to be some. But the type of victory that they just had across the board, to have a starter dominate that way, to have the recently promoted Mark Vientos homer in his first game up, to have Alvarez hit a home run in that spot, and then to have your go-to guy walk it off. I think the collective victory in that clubhouse, what they're going to carry to the ballpark tomorrow, hopefully, is going to weigh a lot more than just one victory could. But maybe I'm just being optimistic because walk-offs are fun. We'll see. I was frustrated, though, with the lineup today, with the decision the Mets made when it comes to the roster. So we're going to get to all of that in just a minute. Before we do, though, today's episode is brought to you by Sorare. Our new sponsor, Sorare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace that transforms fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, Sorare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. Sorare MLB managers who rank at the top or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of these rewards, which can include Sorare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. Prizes may vary depending on the competition. Head to Sorare.com/lockedon to play. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that is Sorare.com/lockedon. Start playing today. The Mets play the Rays today, 1:10 Eastern. Catch every pitch of the Mets' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Mets. Now, the roster move that coincided with Mark Vientos being promoted was Luis Guillorme getting optioned down to AAA. Why did the Mets make this move? He's the only player on the roster that had options to go down to AAA. That's the main reason. Now, he also was struggling. So, I'm not going to bang the table and say, oh, I can't believe they did this to Guillorme, because he wasn't playing great. With that said, what I don't like about this move is that with Guillorme and being able to start him at second base, defensively, I still think that is a net win for the Mets, but also it allows you to play Jeff McNeil in the outfield. So by optioning Guillorme, you're almost optioning the flexibility of playing McNeil in the outfield. Now, with that said, Eduardo Escobar might get some time at second base. I just don't love Escobar playing second base this stage of his career. I think he's much better suited to play third, but that's where we are. That's the decision the Mets made, and I'm okay with it under one condition. Is Mark Vientos going to play every day? Or almost every day, or 4 times a week? That's where I get concerned. Part of it, yes, is the McNeil Guillorme factor at second base, but I can live without that. That's not really the big thing that makes me pause and go, oh, what's happening here? And then you see the lineup, and this is where the concern continued for me. Eduardo Escobar was playing second, batting second. A little bit surprising. Tommy Pham in the game against the lefty. Mark Hanna in the game against the lefty. Who was absent? Brett Beatty and Jeff McNeil. Is that going to be a pattern? Again, Vogelback not starting. His one big spot, runners on, against a lefty because the Rays played the matchup, struck out. Looked ugly too. So, that's why, partially too, I was okay if we found out that Daniel Vogelback would hit the IL with a phantom injury, or that he would get traded or designated, because it would have just opened that clear runway. Mark Vientos, everyday DH. Okay. I get not doing that, though. I get the value that Vogelback brings, even just to the bench as a left-handed bat. Fine. What concerns me is that you still have Tommy Pham and Eduardo Escobar that could be eating into the playing time of the young kids. If we learned anything tonight, that all of them have the potential to lead the yard at any time, which you can't say about a lot of the veterans. As hard as you can tell me, Buck Showalter, that Tommy Pham is hitting the baseball, I promise you, if you give him and Mark Vientos the same playing time, Mark Vientos is going to put up better numbers. Promise you. So it's just a matter of how does Buck Showalter deploy this team. We saw Brett Beatty get in there and left tonight because he pinch hit for Mark Hanna. That's good to see. And if you're telling me that part of this decision was, all right, Brett Baty's going to get some more time in the outfield because Mark Vientos going to be playing some third base. As much as defensively, I'd be a little bit concerned. We did see Vientos make a bad play and a good play. We saw a bad third at second. We saw a really strong third at first. You're going to see a lot of that. I think you still need Baty playing the position mostly. And again, you can DH. You can just DH him. That would mean maybe not playing Tommy Pham. Oh, well. Oh, well. Tommy Pham's a fourth outfielder pinch runner. Maybe it should be Tim LeCastro. Castro gets healthy. Maybe that should be the move. You carry LeCastro to just be a defense speed guy. You got your two boppers, and you got Escobar being the utility fielder with Brett Baty and Jeff McNeil being guys that can play in the dirt and the grass, can play the outfield and the infield, and you just cobble it together and figure it out. I'm fine with that. What I'm not going to be happy with is prospects sitting with some of these veterans getting opportunities. With Daniel Vogelbach still being the everyday DH, or not the everyday DH, the always DH if a righty starter's on the mound. Yes, get him in the lineup, sure, but not always. And you know what? If you're going to tell me that you're going to cut it to Mark Canha's playing time and play Vogelbach and Vientos, I'm cool with that. You want to put Brett Baty in left, Vientos at third, and Vogelbach at DH. You're going to go heavy into the offense. Fine. I can accept that. What I'm not going to be happy with is Vientos, Baty, and currently Alvarez being put on the bench in favor of veterans who aren't performing. So it's now on Buck to make all these pieces work. And I'm not going to criticize him until we get a sample size, because we were quick to criticize him on Baty. He's played him almost every day, largely. We were critical of him on Alvarez to start. Alvarez earned the job. So Vientos might have to earn the job. Certainly did it tonight. Let's see him continue to do it. And I think some of these roster things will eventually work themselves out, where at some point Tommy Pham probably won't be on this roster and there's going to be a better option. But for now, and also I will say this too, as much as I might have campaigned for Pham, when Starling Marte gets hit in the wrist, first thought in my head was, glad they didn't DFA Tommy Pham today. So to Billy Epler's credit, that is why you take the one guy with optionality in Guilherme, send him down and figure it all out later. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. For all you everydayers, tomorrow's show, capping out this series against the Rays, will be looking over what happened. Did they win it? Did they lose it? Looking at a weekend series against the Guardians. And maybe we'll check in on the last remaining top prospect in triple, Ronnie Mauricio. So make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan, and follow the show at Locked On Mets.